She rides with the infamous Hell Angels, a world where loyalty is tested and danger lurks at every turn. But what happened when this fearless biker girl walked into a quiet cafe and met a seemingly ordinary cafe guy? The moment that followed would change their lives and everything she thought she knew about trust and connection. The rumble of engines echoed through the small town as the Hell Angels rolled in, a tight-knit group known for their fierce loyalty and ironclad brotherhood. Among them was Jade, a biker girl who carried the weight of the gang's reputation on her shoulders, but also a heart tempered by years of battles, both external and internal. Jade wasn't just any member. She was respected for her fearless attitude behind the handlebars and the fire that burned within her. But beneath that tough exterior was a story many never got to hear, marked by loss, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of belonging. The day started like any other. Jade and her crew had spent the morning riding winding roads, each mile a reminder of the freedom and danger intertwined in their lifestyle. When the sun began dipping low, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Jade pulled her bike into the parking lot of a small cafe, one she had never visited before. It was a quiet place, nothing flashy, a stark contrast to the rough streets and roaring bikes she was used to. The cafe's name, etched simply in faded letters, promised nothing but a moment of calm. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries. Jade's presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. Heads turned, whispers sparked, and a subtle tension spread like wildfire. She wasn't here for trouble, but her image alone commanded attention. The leather jacket adorned with the Hell Angels emblem, the scars that told of countless fights, and the defiant glare that dared anyone to challenge her. Behind the counter stood Ethan, a young cafe worker whose life couldn't have been more different from Jade's. Soft-spoken and reserved, Ethan had grown up in the town, working hard to support his family while dreaming of a world beyond the cramped confines of his everyday routine. His days were filled with the simple rhythm of preparing orders, wiping down tables, and exchanging shy smiles with regular customers. He had never expected that today, his routine would be shattered. The moment he looked up and locked eyes with Jade would be a turning point neither of them could have anticipated. Jade ordered a black coffee, her voice low but steady, carrying an edge that spoke of command. As Ethan prepared her drink, his hands trembled slightly, not out of fear, but out of the surreal feeling that something profound was unfolding. The contrast between them was stark, her wild spirit and his careful calmness. But there was an unspoken curiosity weaving an invisible thread between two worlds so far apart. What happened next defied expectations. The initial tension gave way to something unexpected, a connection sparked by a simple act that would ignite a chain of events neither could control. Jade's hardened defenses began to crack, revealing a vulnerability hidden beneath layers of grit and rebellion. For Ethan, the encounter was a shock to his carefully ordered life, forcing him to confront his own fears and aspirations in ways he never imagined. This moment, seemingly small and inconsequential, was the beginning of a story that would challenge everything Jade believed about loyalty, trust, and the meaning of true strength. In the coming hours, their lives would intertwine in ways that brought pain, hope, and a revelation that nothing would ever be the same again. As the minutes ticked by in the quiet cafe, Jade remained seated, an uncharacteristic stillness surrounding her that contrasted sharply with the restless energy that usually defined her presence. The other Hell Angels outside the window were preparing their bikes, their rugged voices and laughter carrying faintly through the air. But inside, time seemed to slow down. Ethan, behind the counter, stole glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking. Something about her fierce demeanor mixed with an undercurrent of fatigue stirred a strange empathy within him. Jade's mind was racing. not with thoughts of the gang or the road ahead, but with a flood of memories she had desperately tried to lock away. Memories of a past filled with loss, moments of trust broken by betrayal, the very things that shaped the armor she wore today. The Hell Angels weren't just a club, they were family, but that family had also demanded sacrifices she sometimes wished she hadn't made. She was used to facing danger head-on, but inside this simple cafe, confronted by a stranger's quiet gaze, she felt exposed in a way that terrified her. Ethan, for his part, was grappling with a mix of fascination and fear. He had grown up hearing stories about the Hell Angels, tales filled with myth, menace, and bravado, but here, before him, was a woman who defied those stories with her complexity. She wasn't just a symbol of danger, she was painfully human, carrying burdens that mirrored his own struggles in a different form. Behind the counter, he wiped a cup with shaking hands before finally summoning the courage to speak. "Would you like anything else?" His voice barely above a whisper. Jade looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time in a long while. Eyes that held the weight of storms weathered and battles fought. There was a moment of silence thick with unspoken words, a tension that neither understood, but both felt deeply. Something raw and unexpected blossomed between them, an understanding forged not in shared words, but in shared pain. "I'm good," she replied, voice rough but softer than before. "Thanks." Ethan nodded, but the moment didn't end there. He found himself wanting to know more, to see past the fierce facade and glimpse the woman beneath. "You're not from around here, are you?" he ventured cautiously. Jade scoffed lightly, a bitter smile tugging at her lips. "You could say that. Hell Angels don't just settle down in small towns." He chuckled nervously, sensing her invitation to talk more was limited but real. "I guess that makes you different." Different's an understatement. She leaned back, fingers drumming on the table absent-mindedly. "I've seen things that change you, make you question what family really means." That simple revelation triggered something in Ethan. He shared his own story, of dreams deferred, of the heavy chains invisible to most but impossible to ignore, of a longing for something beyond the confines of his daily grind. And as their stories intertwined, a fragile bridge was built between two worlds. Suddenly, the cafe door slammed open and one of Jade's gang members hurried in, urgency clouding his face. "Jade, we need to move! Trouble's coming fast!" Jade's heart pounded, not from the news, but from the abrupt shift tearing her away from this rare moment of connection. She looked at Ethan, eyes heavy with regret. "This isn't over," she promised, before donning her jacket and stepping out into the fading light. Ethan watched her leave, a whirlwind of emotions wrestling within him. What had started as a simple coffee break had turned into a profound encounter, one filled with hope, pain, and a promise neither one was ready to fully understand yet. As Jade stepped out of the cafe and back onto the cracked pavement, the weight of the moment settled heavily on her shoulders. The warmth of that brief, unexpected connection with Ethan still lingered, conflicting sharply with the cold reality waiting for her outside. The rumble of engines and clatter of boots grew louder as her gang members clustered around, their faces etched with concern and urgency. The Hell Angels lived in a world where loyalty was everything, but danger was never far behind, and tonight was no exception. Jade's mind raced as she listened to the warnings. A rival gang was closing in, threatening more than just their turf. For her, it wasn't simply about territory or pride. It was about survival and the fragile bonds of trust that held them together. In this life, a moment's hesitation could mean the difference between life and death. Yet as the adrenaline surged, part of her mind remained tethered to Ethan's quiet gaze, a stark contrast to the chaos swallowing her world. The night swallowed them whole as Jade and the Hell Angels roared through the streets, engines echoing like thunder in the darkness. As they confronted the rival gang, the fight was brutal and unforgiving. Amid the clash of fists, the roar of engines, and the shouts piercing the night, Jade found herself driven by something deeper than anger or loyalty. It was a desperate need to protect the fragile hope she glimpsed in that cafe. The fight was more than a struggle for power. It was a battle for a future she secretly longed for. The encounter left scars, both visible and invisible. Jade carried the sting of betrayal from a fight that nearly cost her everything, while Ethan waited, unsure of what her world held but willing to stand by the edge, hoping for a light to break through the darkness. That night marked a turning point, not only for them as individuals, but for the collision of two very different lives. Back in the quiet of his small apartment, Ethan replayed the evening's events relentlessly. His thoughts spiraled around Jade, her fiery spirit, the depth behind her guarded eyes, and the stark reality of the world she belonged to. Could someone like her ever truly trust anyone outside her circle? More importantly, could she want to? The tension between attraction and danger wove tightly through Ethan's heart, pulling him toward the unimaginable. Jade, meanwhile, grappled with her own storm of emotions, conflicted over the connections she made and the life she led. The Hell Angels had been her family, her identity, but the glimpse of kindness and understanding from a stranger sparked a flicker of doubt and curiosity. What if there was another way? A path where she did not have to carry the weight of her past and the violence of her present? The days following the encounter were filled with a tumult of thoughts and glances. Jade found herself returning to the cafe, drawn not only by the comforting aroma of coffee and the quiet that had been so foreign to her life, but by an unspoken need to understand Ethan and the fragile hope he represented. Ethan, for his part, wrestled with the fear of stepping too close to a world he barely comprehended and the pull to bridge the divide, that daunting, beautiful abyss between two souls. Their story was no longer just a chance meeting, but a powerful narrative of resilience and vulnerability, a testament to the unthinkable connections forged when strength meets softness, when past trauma meets new hope. And as nights turned into mornings, neither could deny the growing bond that promised to change everything they believed about themselves and each other. The quiet moments between the chaos were the hardest. For Jade, returning to the cafe felt like stepping into an alternate reality, one where the noise of the road dimmed and the harsh edges of her life softened, if only temporarily. She found herself lingering in the corner seat, watching Ethan move carefully behind the counter, never quite sure if she wanted to talk or simply be near the gentle rhythm of his world. Yet beneath her composed exterior, a storm brewed, a mixture of fear, hope, and the lingering pain of a life filled with scars. Ethan's world, too, shifted in subtle ways that caught even him off guard. Every glance he stole at Jade was filled with questions and wonder. What was it about her that shattered his preconceived notions of the Hell Angels? Was it the vulnerability she rarely showed, hidden beneath a fortress of leather and tattoos? Or was it something deeper, a shared ache that neither of them had voiced? These thoughts tumbled endlessly through his mind, complicating the simple routines he had long relied on. The connection grew deeper with each visit. Conversations sparked, tentative at first, then with growing urgency. They shared fragments of their lives, careful not to reveal too much, yet unable to resist the pull to open their hearts. Jade spoke of the brotherhood, the battles, and the loneliness that came with being part of something so fierce and unforgiving. Ethan spoke of dreams deferred, family struggles, and a longing for something more than ordinary days. In their exchange, they found mirrors of their own souls, unexpected reflections of pain and hope intertwined. But as their bond strengthened, darker shadows crept closer. The rival gang's hostility had not waned, and suspicion within the Hell Angels began to grow. Some questioned Jade's recent distraction, whispering doubts about loyalty and the risks of vulnerability. Jade felt torn, between the fierce allegiance to her gang and the new, fragile connection she had found with Ethan. The pressure mounted, threatening to break the fragile balance she had fought so hard to maintain. One evening, as the cafe closed, an ominous knock echoed through the quiet room. Ethan opened the door to find a figure silhouetted against the streetlight, an emissary from the rival gang delivering a warning. Jade's name was mentioned, along with threats that hinted at consequences far more dangerous than any fight on the street. Fear surged through Ethan, but so did determination. This was no longer just about survival. It was about protecting the unexpected bond that had blossomed between two very different worlds. Jade arrived moments later, tension visible in every line of her body. They spoke in hushed tones, the weight of the threat hanging heavy. Jade's usual confidence was tempered by the knowledge that this battle was not just physical. It was deeply personal. She confessed fears she rarely allowed herself to admit, that her past could destroy the fragile hope she had found, that the darkness chasing her could claim more than just her freedom. In that charged moment, Ethan reached out, a gesture that surprised them both. It was an offering of solidarity and trust, a promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. For Jade, the gesture broke through layers of defense she had built over years. For Ethan, it was a commitment to stand by someone whose world he barely understood but refused to abandon. This was more than a story about gangs, danger, and rivalry. It was about the transformative power of human connection, how even in the darkest places hope can take root and thrive. Their journey was only beginning, filled with heartbreak, courage, and the unyielding desire to redefine what family, loyalty, and love could mean. Days turned into nights, steeped in uncertainty as Jade and Ethan navigated the fragile threads linking their worlds. They knew the stakes had never been higher, and the price of misstep could be devastating. But in the silence between threats and secrets, a powerful resilience was building, one born from the kindling of trust and unexpected empathy. Jade's tough exterior slowly softened as Ethan's steady presence became an anchor in the storm tearing through her life. The Hell Angels, ever vigilant, noticed her changing demeanor. Whispers filled the hidden corners of their gatherings, the question of allegiance hanging like a blade over Jade's head. Was her heart truly with the gang? Or was it somewhere else? Caught in the quiet compassion of a man who saw beyond her tattoos and reputation. The scrutiny was relentless, forcing her to confront a terrifying possibility, that to protect what she was beginning to cherish, she might have to face enemies both outside and within. Ethan, too, was feeling the pressure. His family worried about the dangerous path he was treading, the invisibility of the threat cloaking the danger that hung over his life. They pleaded for caution, their voices heavy with fear and protectiveness. Yet he refused to turn away from Jade, drawn by a fierce determination that surprised even himself. Her world was one of chaos and conflict, yet she carried a fierce hope that mirrored his own desire to break free from limitations. One evening, under the dim glow of street lamps, Jade and Ethan met in secrecy, a stolen moment away from prying eyes and whispered judgment. The air was tense, but filled with unspoken promises. Jade shared fragments of her past, the battles won and lost, the sacrifices made, and the painful moments carved deep into her soul. Ethan listened, his heart aching for the strength she bore, yet the vulnerabilities she rarely revealed. Suddenly, the peace shattered. From the shadows, figures emerged, members of the rival gang, relentless in their pursuit. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Jade's instincts kicked in, fierce and unyielding, as fight erupted in the alleyway, the night alive with shouts and the clash of bodies. Ethan, caught in the chaos, found himself torn between fear and the need to protect the woman who had captured his heart. In the aftermath, bruised but unbroken, Jade and Ethan faced a harsh reality. Their bond had drawn enemies closer, and the path ahead was fraught with peril. Yet in the quiet moments following the storm, They found solace in each other's presence, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, light could be found. This chapter of their story was marked by heartbreak, courage, and the unyielding fight to carve out a space where love and loyalty could coexist. It was a testament to the power of connection, the strength found in vulnerability, and the hope that even the most unlikely encounters could change everything. In the days following the violent encounter, a heavy silence settled around Jade and Ethan, thick with unspoken fears and wounds that went beyond the surface. Jade retreated into herself, masking the bruises with a fierce determination not to show weakness, even though the pain radiated deeper than just flesh. For her, vulnerability had always been a dangerous luxury, one she could barely afford in a world ruled by mistrust and violence. Yet beneath the hardened armor, the encounter with Ethan had carved a space where hope flickered faintly but insistently. Ethan, meanwhile, paced his small apartment, caught in a swirl of conflicting emotions. Part of him was terrified, haunted by the shadow of the rival gang, by the steep price that loyalty to Jade could exact. But another part burned with a fierce resolve. He refused to let fear dictate his choices or sever the fragile bond growing between them. Every message they exchanged, every stolen moment they shared, solidified a connection neither had expected, but both desperately needed. Their worlds, so starkly different, drew them together in ways that the calloused streets and whispered threats tried to tear apart. Jade's life with the Hell Angels was a blur of roaring motorcycles, late-night alliances, and constant peril. Each day was a battle to maintain control over a world that often seemed bent on destruction. Yet her growing bond with Ethan introduced a new kind of fight, a fight for something precious and fragile. It was a struggle to hold on to the possibility of a life that included not only survival, but peace. One afternoon, beneath the weight of a sky heavy with storm clouds, Ethan found himself waiting anxiously outside the cafe. Jade arrived, her expression guarded but softer than usual. They slipped into a quiet corner, the hum of the world falling away as they leaned in close. Jade revealed more of her story, the sacrifices she had made for the gang, the moments she wished she could erase, the dreams she stifled in the name of loyalty. For the first time, the barriers around her cracked enough to let a glimpse of the real Jade shine through. As she spoke, Ethan reached out, taking her hand with a tenderness that contrasted with the turmoil swirling in their lives. "You don't have to carry it alone," he whispered. "Whatever comes next, whatever fights you face, I'm here." But even as that promise hung in the air, danger lurked. The rival gang was growing bolder, their threats sharper, their reach creeping closer to the fragile haven Jade and Ethan were trying to build. The tension tightened like a noose around their burgeoning connection, forcing them to make impossible choices. Jade was caught between two worlds, the loyalty to her brothers in the Hell Angels, where trust was earned through blood and battle, and the love growing quietly in a small cafe that smelled of hope and fresh coffee. Ethan, though new to this dangerous dance, was willing to risk everything for a chance at something real, a chance to rewrite the stories that had defined them both for far too long. Their journey was far from over. Ahead lay heartbreak and sacrifice, moments of intense fear and overwhelming love. It was a story of resilience in the face of relentless adversity, a testament to the power of connection when the world seemed determined to keep them apart. The days that followed were marked by a growing storm, not only in the skies above, but in the lives of Jade and Ethan. The air crackled with tension. Every whispered conversation and cautious glance waited with unspoken warnings. Jade's world, once defined by the rough loyalty of the Hell Angels, was now a battleground for her heart and her future. The gang's rules were clear. Allegiances didn't bend, and weakness could be fatal. But Jade had tasted something different, something that made her question everything she thought she knew. Ethan's place in her world was still uncertain, a fragile thread connecting two lives that seemed destined to collide violently. He watched her, the fierce glint in her eyes, the way she carried herself like a warrior prepared for battle. Yet he also saw the cracks, the moments of exhaustion, the flickers of doubt and fear she fought so hard to hide. For all her strength, Jade was human, and it was that humanity, the part Ethan reached for, that made their connection so powerful and so dangerous. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of fire, Jade and Ethan met in secret once again. They found refuge in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, a place where the ghosts of the past seemed to echo in the shadows. Here, away from prying eyes and whispered judgments, they allowed themselves to be vulnerable. Jade shared memories of her childhood, of a family fractured by violence, of dreams shattered by betrayal, and of the loneliness that drove her to seek belonging in the Hell Angels. Ethan listened, his heart breaking for the girl who had fought so hard for survival. He spoke of his own struggles, of hope deferred, of courage tested by circumstances that left him feeling powerless. In that dimly lit space, their stories intertwined, creating a tapestry of pain and resilience that bound them closer together than either had imagined possible. But their sanctuary was fragile. Unbeknownst to them, the rival gang had caught wind of their meetings, and their presence in the warehouse did not go unnoticed. The tension escalated rapidly. Footsteps echoed in the distance, voices raised in menace. Jade's instincts surged to the forefront as she readied herself for the fight she knew was coming. The battle was fierce and unforgiving. The warehouse became a chaotic arena of shadows and violence, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked just beyond their fragile moments of peace. Jade fought with a ferocity born of desperation, every strike fueled by the need to protect Ethan and the hope they had found together. Ethan, though outmatched in experience, stood by her side, his determination unwavering despite the danger. When the dust settled, they were battered but alive, their bond forged even stronger in the crucible of conflict. They realized that their fight was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming their right to choose their own path, to redefine loyalty and love on their own terms. In the aftermath, as they nursed their wounds, Jade and Ethan made a silent pact. They would face whatever came next together, no matter the cost. Their journey was far from over, but in each other they had found a reason to hope, a light burning bright enough to pierce the darkness that threatened to consume them. Their story is a powerful reminder that even in worlds steeped in danger and mistrust, the human heart has the extraordinary capacity to find connection, to heal, and to hope. Jade, a fierce Hell Angels biker girl, and Ethan, a quiet cafe worker from a small town, showed us that love and loyalty don't always follow the rules we expect. Sometimes they break barriers, challenge fears, and rewrite destinies. This journey through pain, courage, and resilience teaches us that no matter how broken we feel, there is always a chance to rebuild, to find light in the darkest moments and strength in the most unlikely places. Jade and Ethan's story isn't just theirs alone. It's a call for all of us to believe in second chances, to embrace vulnerability, and to stand firm for what truly matters. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or made you reflect on the power of unexpected connections, please like, share, and subscribe. Join us for more stories that dive deep into the human spirit, stories that challenge, uplift, and remind us that every encounter has the power to change everything. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of these incredible journeys. Thank you for being part of this experience. Your support means the world. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, sometimes the most unlikely meetings create the most unforgettable stories.